All right, week 12, college football breakdown here. We got Bedlam, Oklahoma State, traveling to Norman and taking on the Sooners. Oklahoma did lose that game in Morgantown last week, dropped them to 5-5. Still a 7.5-point favorite in this spot, and a pretty high total as well at 66. I'm going to get into the side in a second, but I did make a play on this game already. Over 66 is an official one-unit play for me. It really starts with pace. We know Jeff Lebby and this Oklahoma system is a very I'd say a maniacally fast-paced team. That's nothing new. But when Spencer Sanders is healthy, Oklahoma State has run just as fast this year. I mean, obviously, when it's Garrett Gundy or Rangel, those young quarterbacks, they're not going to use tempo as much. But Spencer Sanders is going to play this game. And so I do expect Oklahoma State to match Oklahoma's tempo. So that when looking at totals, pace is the first thing I look at before matchups because it just has to make sense. It certainly does in this matchup. Talking about Oklahoma's offense for a second, there's not really one aspect of what they do I think Oklahoma State has an answer for. I'm of the opinion that Dylan Gabriel hasn't played his best football this year, and yet 8.5 yards per attempt, 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, if you watched Oklahoma games, left a ton of plays out on the field, missed quite a few open receivers, you still got, pretty decent numbers. Eric Gray at the running back position, one of the biggest hidden gems in college football. He's over 1,100 yards, over 6.5 yards per carry. We know what he can do as a receiver. With Oklahoma's offensive line actually exceeding my expectations, where does Oklahoma State have answers? We've seen them get burned in the secondary more so earlier in the year, but as of late, they have gotten gashed on the ground. I mean, Devin Neal at Kansas, Deuce Vaughn at Kansas State, each had over 7 yards per carry against this defense. It's the same type of slippery home run hitting back you're facing here in Eric Gray. And then we obviously know in this veer and shoot system what Dylan Gabriel can do in the passing game, creating explosive plays there. I know Oklahoma put up 20 points last week in the loss. We've seen them bounce back well, though, from those performances. They got shut out in the Red River game against Texas, thankfully. Came back the next week, put up 52 against Kansas. Put up 27 on the road at Iowa State. Came back the next week and put up 35 against a pretty solid Baylor defense. So, I do think Oklahoma gets into the 40s in this matchup, with potential to maybe get 45, 48 and really pick up their end of the bargain. Oklahoma State's offense, I've been extremely critical of all year. Spencer Sanders, it's just a fact, has yet to throw for over 7 yards per attempt against a Power 5 opponent this season. Their running game has been incredibly mediocre. I mean, Dominic Richardson is under 4 yards per carry. Don't think they're great along their offensive line. I think this is where nuance comes into play, though. Sanders, a fourth-year starting quarterback. This is the biggest game of Oklahoma State's season. Mike Gundy is still one of the best head coaches in college football. You don't coach almost 20 years at one place without being really good at what you do. So even if Oklahoma State hasn't impressed me overall this year, within this matchup and within this context, I think they have one of their better offensive showings of the season. This Oklahoma defense is pretty mediocre across the board. We've seen that really in multiple areas this year. Similar to Oklahoma State, it started with their secondary. In that stretch of TCU, Texas, Kansas, they allowed over 9 yards per attempt through the air in all those games. And then just a few weeks ago, Baylor ran all over them in that win in Norman. So this is a pretty good opponent for Oklahoma State to get in a rhythm offensively against. And like I said, this is where nuance comes into play. If you're a strict numbers guy, if you just take what you've seen this year, I could understand why you might not like them as much. But like I said, you got a mobile quarterback. He's a fourth-year starter. I think we get Spencer Sanders' best performance of the season. Suffice to say, I see this as more of a 42-31 kind of game. I think this game does get played in the 70s, and I think there is potential with the pace and with my lack of trust in each defense that it could go higher than that. We could see a 48-40 kind of game. Would that really surprise anybody? I did play this over the 66. As much as it pains me to say, I lean towards Oklahoma here. I just don't have as many questions about Oklahoma's offense. Quite frankly, I think Oklahoma can score pretty easily in this matchup. Rather than worry about a side, it is a rivalry game. I do worry about some of the dynamics for Oklahoma going up against Gundy, going up against Spencer Sanders. I don't want to have to worry about that. With the pace, with my lack of trust in these defenses, my best look in this game and an official one-unit play for me is that over 66. The holidays are here. Head over to proud90.com and check out their holiday selection. Still over a month till Christmas, so plenty of time to get yourself, a friend, a family member, some unique but very comfortable golf apparel. Weather's obviously getting colder too. Proud 90's got a great selection of hoodies and quarter zips as well. We're all doing a lot of Christmas shopping. Save yourself some money. Use code Fordham at checkout for 15% off your order. The rest of the information will be in the description below.